Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Polygonal Perspective. I'm Ian, and the guy on the call with me today is...
Hey everyone, this is Serge.
Take it away, Serge. What have you been playing lately?
Well, first of all, we've been with some holidays recently. Easter. How was your Easter, Ian?
Oh, it was good. Went to Scotland to see some family.
Nice. I kind of stayed home, I guess. My mother is quite into painting the eggs. Ian, have you ever done that for Easter?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Oh, nice. Are you like painting them like with actual paint and then they're like different colors and stuff?
Yeah, with watercolors. My mom ran a daycare out of our house, so for years, even well in my teenage years, every Easter or leading up to Easter, she'd do egg painting with the kids, and I'd get involved as well, help her out.
Nice. Yeah, my grandmother used to do that a lot. She would put like stickers on the eggs and then put the color, and you boil them, you peel off the stickers, and you get different shapes. And
Is there a traditional Eastern European way of painting them, like an Orthodox thing?
I guess I think just everyone does their own thing. My family and extended family is Orthodox slash Catholic, so there's just a mix. And obviously, these days I'm not there, so it's a bit of a less of a thing, but they still kind of keep it up. So I've spent this time kind of catching up with some of the games I had in my backlog, and one of them is Mass Effect Andromeda. Mm-hmm. Finally, I've decided to just get on with it. After years of putting it off, I sat down and said, okay, this time I'm going to finish it. And I even used my save that I had already. And that save already had like 50 hours of gameplay. So I thought that's a waste to start over. And so I just kept playing that. And I'm going to speak a lot more about this once I finish the game. I'm probably 70 or 80% done. So for next time, I'll have it done. And I have quite a bit of thoughts on that game. For the most part, I think it was, people were quite harsh to it. I think, well, anyway, I'll speak about it next time, I think. So another thing I've been playing, and actually that does tie into our news section, but I might as well just kind of cover it here as well, is Dark and Darker.
I haven't played this one.
Right. So Dark and Darker, it's by a new developer called Ironmaces. And they are a bunch of guys who left Nexon. Nexon is a publisher best known for, I guess, MapleStory.
The Korean company? They
are based in Japan, but they are Japanese / Korean mixed company, I guess. They've been around for a while. Okay. They actually had they did a lot of things. They published a lot of games. They worked with a lot of developers. And what happened recently is that they apparently had a project called P3, I think, and apparently it was canceled. So some of the developers from that team, I guess, weren't happy and they left. They formed a new team called Ironmaces, and they started developing Dark and Darker. And soon after that, the Nexon accused them of theft, IP theft, and in fact had police raid their offices, and that made they also had to remove the game from Steam. They did some sort of GoFundMe campaign that kind of didn't turn out too well. Now they're trying to get back to developing the game and being able to kind of have it somewhere out, to a point where they resorted to asking players to torrent the build and play test it for them, which is exactly what I did. So you literally, the only way to play this game right now, which is an alpha test, fair enough, but it's to torrent it, install it and play it, because
so is Nexon arguing that they were essentially working on something very similar to this?
they
when working at Nexon, and then they've kind of carried it forward.
Yeah, they saying literally that they directly stole assets and ideas, which is the part where it gets me. It's really interesting that they're saying that, because at the end of the day, like, one thing, assets is one thing, but can you say that you can protect your ideas? Because
It's very hard to. I feel like that wouldn't hold up in court because it's so hard to copyright an idea. You don't see a lot of, legal protections around game mechanics or things like that. Assets, maybe. I guess hopefully these developers can afford the legal fees to defend their stuff.
Yeah,
Because I'm assuming they're not going to have much money to continue going forward. They probably put all their eggs in this basket, this one game that now they can't sell.
yeah, it's a weird thing. We live in a world where Shadow of Mordor's Nemesis system is copyrighted somehow, some way they managed to do it. So I always thought it was a bit of a bullshit, but there you go. But I think here is even less. They even have less of a actual, they have nothing really. There was no game. They didn't copy any game. The game the next one had or was developed and was cancelled. So they have nothing to show to actually say, hey, yeah, this game that we had, they just copied it. So look, your team left, like, they want to make this game. Should you be sitting there and trying to get in their way? Are you going to make this game? Well, apparently not, because you don't have anything. I mean, obviously theft is bad, and if there is an actual asset theft, fair enough, but it's just a mess. Either way,
Works out for them.
yeah. So let's look at the actual game, because I think it's pretty cool. So from just what you've seen right now, I'm showing you, what do you think it is?
Just from this screenshot.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I can see. I mean, the picture is zoomed out. I can see some kind of map at the bottom right. I'm getting Elder Scrolls vibes from just the UI and the setting, the first-person perspective. I assume it's some kind of first-person RPG, dungeon crawler, maybe real-time combat.
Right. Yeah.
How wrong am I?
Well, you're not wrong at all, but so they pitched it as like this co-op dungeon crawling adventure game, and I thought, oh, cool, this is gonna be a really like back to basics, gather your party, like D&D style, right? Deliberate swings, slow magic spells, deadly skeletons. You get your team, you go in the dungeon, you clear it, probably gonna die, maybe try again, and then if you get to the end, you won, you got your loot. Instead, what this game actually is a battle royale.
Okay.
So it takes an overall concept of battle royale, where you get dropped into a dungeon, either alone or with other players as a team, and you have to survive and find the exit, which is the portal. You can have to open the portal to exit the dungeon before dying. You have one life. They have other ideas here, other features in the build, but for the most part, it's like a battle royale essentially. You see in the minimap, there's like the circle, the battle royale circle, and it gets smaller. You have the timer there, and in that, by the time that runs out, you'll have nowhere you can go where there isn't the darkness that's coming in and to get you. So you'll have to find the portal. If you don't find the portal in time, you're gonna die. And it's brutal. Everything hurts. The goblins are deadly. The flies are deadly. Everything is deadly. And if you die, you lose all the items you have on you. So that means everything you have equipped, everything you have in your inventory, and everything just gets dropped, and other players can pick it up. So that means that when you meet somebody, it's you don't have to fight them, but the way this game is set up, they will fight you for your stuff essentially, unless you're in a team, unless you form a party. In that case, it's obviously you're together.
It's interesting that they're distilling the RPG experience, what's usually many hours of a slow-paced game, into this probably what, 20-50 minute online skirmish.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think obviously this is essentially a collection of ideas present in other games, in current games. Have you actually played any of the? Have you spent any quality time with any of the modern battle royale games?
I'd hate to call it quality time, but I have played a little bit of Fortnite to just understand what everybody's talking about. And I've played a tiny bit of Apex because as a Titanfall fan, I wanted to see what they were going to do with that. But I hate to call any of it quality time or even like a ton of time to really, I don't know, maybe there's something that I'm missing with them. Obviously, they aren't my cup of tea.
Yeah, I think I probably spent even less than you. I guess I did play a bit of Apex, and I leaned more towards more of a classic multiplayer games, and I think comes down to like the way the matches flow. Like you can end up waiting and being dead way more than you're actually playing the game. And when you are playing, you're spending a lot of time just running around and looking for your enemies. It depends on the game, right? I think in Apex that I felt like where it was like I would spend like most of the 60% or 70% of the game time running around, gearing up, and then the fight was like 2 minutes, and most people are dead.
I played a bit of DayZ. Definitely some cool ideas in there, but a lot of what I liked about DayZ didn't carry over to the rest of them. I like the idea that in DayZ you never really knew if somebody could be your friend or be a foe, but it just makes sense to engage people if you feel like you're strong enough in something like Fortnite. They've certainly taken those ideas and simplified them to more of like a traditional multiplayer thing, and I do love like classic team deathmatch and capture the flag and that kind of thing. So it's weird that they don't have any kind of appeal for me.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's just a case of the concept was interesting, but it just for me it needed to have something extra, maybe something different, a new setting, a new way of looking at it. And that, in fact, pretty much Dark and Darkness is exactly that, right? It has still that basic idea of battle royale, the shrinking circle, the one survivor or a group, but it has a lot of other things that I care a bit more about. Fantasy setting, for example, melee weapons, equipment. Although I guess some of the other ones have equipment as well. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm following it, and once hopefully they'll sort out their legal issues.
So you have to torrent it, but it's a multiplayer game. So are there still official servers hosting matches?
So yeah, and the Alpha 5 is going to be until the 19th of April, I think. So anyone who torrents the build and the patch for it can just jump in and try it out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. In other news, E3 is dead. Have you heard?
Yeah. Oh man, E3 is dead.
I would, yeah. Yeah, RIP E3. I don't know how missed it's going to be. Are you going to miss E3?
Well, yes, I think it was going there, right? I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that E3 is dead at this point. I've been thinking about what actually did it, whether it was COVID or something else.
Well, do you remember what the plans were for E3 2020 before COVID happened? They were talking about it being like a streamer focused event, being really focused on like gaming celebrities, esports players, streamers, that kind of thing. And it seemed that they were shifting the focus away from like the publisher side of things, so the game announcements. And there was sort of a collective, at least from where I saw it, a collective groan. And then when they canceled E3 2020, some people were like, oh, thank goodness, because that was just going to be crap. So I think in some ways that killed it, was the apathy even leading up to, what, 2-3 years of cancellations?
Yeah, I guess that didn't help. Although esports is fair enough, but everything else it wasn't amazing. Like I don't want to see fucking influencers on there. But I think that was just in my mind. It was probably like the chair on top, right? Or like the hair that broke the camel's back. I think actually what it started is where publishers wanted to have more control, and just look at Nintendo. They haven't been going to E3 for like a decade now, and the rest of them were following suit as well. They just wanted to present their games on their terms. I think that's literally what it comes down to. Literally, the COVID and the other stuff for 2020 didn't help at all, like at all. But it was already like limping, I think, because they honestly, I can see how publishers didn't like the fact that they had to present their games on the exact same week or month every year, even though maybe some years they didn't have anything to show. So
Well, and now what, Jeff Keighley's got his own event, right? And he ran E3, or he hosted E3, didn't he? Am I wrong on this? I think he always did an E3 hosting.
yeah, he was involved, and actually, it's surprising that he was able to kind of create this new thing and actually be successful. I don't know if it's because it's a bit more of a personal thing. It's doesn't really have the kind of publisher focused presentations, right? They have a bit more of a individual. They focus more a bit on individual games, giving awards. So I guess that's the way. Maybe I guess he just saw it. Like he knew that if you want to make a show about gaming, first of all, do awards that are kind of independent of announcements or anything like that, and then
Well, he also does what he does Gamescom, and he does Summer Games Fest. So he hosts, I think, 3 shows every year that are kind of collectively, they're sort of the replacement for E3, but they're even better because you get way more game announcements.
yeah, that's the thing, right? It's just like being not relying on publishers showing up and having like this huge presence is probably the only way to survive and keep doing these kind of shows. I mean, E3 was a big thing, right? It's the end of an era. Like I always wanted to go, but maybe I can make it to Summer Game Fest at some point. Maybe I don't know. I guess you haven't been to E3 yourself either.
No, I haven't. I mean, as a kid, I think I would have loved to have gone. These days, yeah, I don't know. It could be cool to go to something like that just to see that you did. I don't know if it's my cup of tea. There's always a danger in buying into the hype of these events, all of the essentially you're buying into all this marketing, all the money going into promoting this game. And these days I'm trying to watch less and less of these trailers and focus more and more on just the end product.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible. It would be impossible, right? Like there's so many things happening right now, like all the time. It's really hard to filter a lot of stuff and focus on what you care about. So many games, so many things happening. Speaking of many games, Pixel Remaster has been it's been out actually on PC
For a long time.
yeah, and now they are out on Switch and PlayStation with some fixes. Square Enix, the ultimate grifters. I guess it's the best way to experience the 1 to 6. I guess, even though, in for me, I still have reservations on certain things like censorship, for example. You know,
I don't like the redrawn art
yeah,
for some of these games.
yeah, I guess it's just, yeah. I mean, it feels like they've been re-releasing these games for a while now, right? Even though I think maybe 1 to 3 is probably, is this the first time they re-released, they like actually remastered them?
No, no. 1 to 3, 3 had the DS and the PSP, the 3D remake.
Oh, I don't count that.
1, 2, and 3 reported to the Wonder Swan in Japan, and then at least 1 and 2 reported to the GBA and then the PSP.
Okay, well, I guess in recent times they haven't really touched them, so maybe probably like if you want to play 1 to 3, it's probably the best way to do it. Although honestly, again, like I mentioned, some of the stuff they cut from 6, specifically, well, back in GBA days already, but still, they could have added these things back, made this like the definitive versions. But I think to this day, if you want to play each of these, you probably need to first sit down and actually do research and to see which version of each of these games is like the best one. It might not be the pixel remaster version, to be honest. Not at all, maybe.
It's a shame that it has to be the case, that you have to do research to know which one's the best one. We need like a Criterion cut of these games.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's all that is out. Probably, if, you know, honestly, at the end of the day, if they're probably fine, you'll get good enough experience, or if you just want to catch up quickly, it's probably the best way to do it nowadays, because otherwise you'll have to go out there and not only do research, but actually probably end up emulating some of these to actually get like the old school experiences. So yeah, pixel remaster.
Yeah, they fixed that. That the reason why we bring it up is because they fixed the ugly font that plagues a lot of these new remasters, especially where things like the font in the UI will be redrawn at a higher resolution, but the visuals will still be the sort of chunky 16-bit style graphics, and it just looks sort of, you know, tonally inconsistent. So they've fixed this stuff, and the UI looks much more cohesive. So all in all, probably not a bad way to experience them.
Yeah, probably.
In other news, the Mario movie is out, and it's smashing box office records. It's already the highest grossing video game movie ever. So it's grossed over 500 million globally as of, what, about a week, 2 weeks after release. Have you seen this, Serge? Have you seen the movie?
No, I mean, it's just like I saw that Chris Pratt is voicing Mario, and then I kept reading that his performance wasn't amazing at it, so that just put me off. I know I have to watch it, but
I'm not watching it. But there is sure to be a sequel, and I'm sure that many game companies are taking notice of this kind of thing because, you know, for years, video game movies were like a curse. Every few years, somebody would try one, and they just turned out laughably bad. You know, the Street Fighter movie, the Mortal Kombat movie, the original Mario Brothers movie. I don't know if you've seen any of those. I've sure seen all of them.
oh yeah, I've seen the original Mario movie and the Street Fighter. I mean, they are the products of their time, right? I think some of the actors maybe from the original Mario movie just came out of the woodwork to talk shit about this one. It's like, do you really do you have any place right now to say some kind of shit talking about like that movie, original Mario movie? I'm sorry, it has nothing to do with Mario. Like they just took the IP, just the very like the basic skin deep idea that there are like two brothers called Mario and Luigi Mario, and then I guess it was like Goombas or something. Look,
yeah, Dennis Hopper played King Koopa.
People remember that movie like fondly now, but I think they need to take off the glasses a bit.
I think it's a more interesting movie than this new one.
Well, you know, we haven't seen it yet, so.
Well, I think this is. I mean, well, there's been a lot of game movies lately. Obviously, the Sonic movies, Detective Pikachu movie, the Warcraft movie, and I think after this, you're probably going to see some other companies taking notice and pushing their IPs.
Have you seen Sonic and Warcraft?
I haven't seen any of these now.
Oh man, Sonic and Warcraft. Well, Warcraft, I think most people won't like it. I like it because I like Warcraft, but Sonic movie, the first one at least, I haven't seen the second one yet. First one is good. I recommend it. It's really good.
You know, the Warcraft movie is directed by David Bowie's son.
I think I knew that. I don't think they're gonna make another one. Unfortunately, I liked it, but of course, everyone just had their opinions on it. And
Are there any game movie adaptations that would be on your wish list? You know, you'd love to see this thing get adapted.
like maybe another Final Fantasy done right. I guess I actually enjoyed Spirits Within. Another one that everyone kind of didn't like, famously almost ruined Square. Although I'm not sure how much true that is. I went to see that in cinema back in the day. Honestly, I think you can take most games and make a movie out of it if you do it right. Like I think they keep trying to remake or make a movie out of Resident Evil, but to this day there hasn't been a single one that was good. The last TV show was horrendous. They keep making these like not live action, CG movies.
CG.
And those are, they are what they are. They kind of doing their own thing, and you have to like be on board with them. There's also the Hollywood movies where the first one was okay, but anything after that, it was just went to nuts. I don't know.
I'm kind of interested in that Metal Gear Solid movie that they've been talking about for so long.
Well, Metal Gear Solid voice actress. So this person, Donna Burke, apparently she has been a voice actress. She was a voice actress on Metal Gear Solid. I think she did. I don't think she did anyone in particular. It was like additional voices or like some sort of droid thing. She also does, other voice over work. She sings as well. So quite involved. I think she does anime as well. She's quite involved in the gaming industry, working there. And she's just posted a picture on her Twitter that just says, I'm recording in progress. And she has like a Snake Eater folder or something like that. And of course, everyone just went nuts. People speculating that it potentially be a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. Somewhere in there is also people close to the project, I guess, saying that the movie is also potentially on the way. I guess Metal Gear Solid movie, you can't. It's such an easy material to adapt to a movie, right? Or it should be.
It's hard to call anything easy. I think the real challenge is how can you make something like that without the creative minds, plural minds. How can you make a new Metal Gear of anything, even a remake, even if this movie is just a retelling of MGS1, without Kojima, without someone like Yoji Shinkawa helping out with like overseeing the visuals, without some of the other people who wrote a lot of the codec calls and supervised this thing. I mean, throughout the credits, there's a fairly consistent crew of people who led the 5 mainline Metal Gear Solid games, and I pity the person who has to fill those shoes because it's such a strong creative vision.
So, do you think? Question to you, then, Ian. Let's say this is all true and Metal Gear movie is on its way. Do you think they should do you think Kojima should be involved heavily from start to finish in that project, or do you think they should go the way of having just him not involved at all and doing completely their own thing, and then him seeing what they come up with that? Or do you think they should go to where, let's say, The Last of Us went, where they work with the developers closely and they ended up with having something that's really, really close to the source material and only slight variations, but overall it's literally the same story, same characters, same beats mostly?
I think it's best when you take liberties, when you diverge from it. I mean, I get the impression that Last of Us diverged as much as it needed to succeed as its own thing, because as much as people say it's The Last of Us is a story-driven game, I mean, it is a game. It's not a movie. Metal Gear is a game, not a movie, and you'd have to make, I think, all kinds of changes for it to be the best adaptation that it could be. Usually the best adaptations take all kinds of creative liberties. I'd like to see Kojima involved. I think he wants to be involved, and I guess he should be as involved as he wants to be involved. I don't think he would direct it. I think it would probably be something closer to what they've done with The Last of Us.
Well, he did say that he directly said I want to make movies. So maybe
yeah, but does he want to make the Metal Gear Solid movie?
Well, yeah, that's I guess. I think for me,
I know. I think he's personal friends with the director, John Voight Roberts, who did Kong Skull Island. He's friends with that guy, so I'm sure they've already had all kinds of conversations about what he'd like to see in a Metal Gear movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll definitely. That's on my radar. If that's in cinemas, I'm going for sure.
They were saying that it's gonna be R-rated, that they're not going to censor anything, and they said it's gonna be weird because the games are weird, and this movie should be as tonally all over the place and surreal, and fourth wall breaking and toilet humor and all those things that you've come to expect from the Metal Gear games. And it shouldn't be anything less than that, I think. Otherwise, just don't make it. Don't make it if it's gonna be a PG-13, watered down, stripped down Hollywood take on things.
It's almost like they should cast Japanese cast to have this weird performances. You know how, look, it's not a secret in Japan that the acting, for the most part, is not great, I guess, or considered less than in the Hollywood. But to be honest, maybe for this kind of project, it would be ideal. Obviously, Snake canonically is like a Western American guy, I guess. But the way it's portrayed in the games, the way I guess the motion capture was probably recorded with Japanese actors. So a lot of that, what you see on screen is very Japanese. And of course, the story itself and the way it's built, the way it's told is Japanese. So it almost feels like they should just make a Japanese movie.
I'd be cool with that.
I think we are pretty much done with the news and what we've been playing as well. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll start with our first game, which is Ace Combat 4 Shattered Skies. Right, we're back with Ace Combat 4 Shattered Skies. Now, Ian, I want to go back to our previous discussion about this from last episode, where I asked you why exactly you chose number 4 instead of 1, and you teased me by saying you'll expand on that next time. So tell me about Ace Combat 4.
So, well, Ace Combat 1 is an arcade game. For a long time, I think I avoided the series because I assumed that it was going to be some kind of simulation. Because from screenshots or from box art or whatever, you just figure that it's going to be some kind of maybe sim-driven gameplay, something more realistic and weighty, and I don't know enough about, or I'm not ready to devote that kind of time to learning flying stuff. It wasn't until I heard that it was more of an arcade game, the first Ace Combat game, Air Combat, is an arcade game, that I was interested in checking out the series, and I did try the first one, and it's a pretty fun game, but it is very simplistic. They did port it to the original PlayStation. That's the version that I played. But Ace Combat 4 is, or at least until I think recently, was the best-selling game in the series. It's the one that a lot of people start with. It's considered to be one of the easier entries in the series, as well as one of the shorter entries in the series. This game only takes maybe like 5 hours to play. The missions are designed in a way that they're very replayable, but it's the perfect blend of the complexity that the later games brought into the series with the relative simplicity of early 2000s gaming, that it makes it a really good jumping off point, I feel.
Wow, 5 hours, that sounds quite short, actually. How many, do you remember how many missions this game has?
I want to say something like 18, maybe?
Oh, then yeah. In that case, each of them is quite short then.
Yeah, like I say, maybe like 4, 5, 6 hours. It's not a long game to beat, but it's the kind of game that you can go back to again and again to get a higher score and play on higher difficulties, unlock better planes, that kind of thing.
Okay, so it sounds like the arcade roots of this game is still present by this time.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I haven't never played Ace Combat. I've obviously always heard about it, and I've never thought that this game was a simulation at all. Actually, I always kind of knew this was a bit more of an arcade thing, and planes, jets are okay. I'm not the biggest fan of them. I think the closest to this I've played back in the day was probably Desert Strike and Jungle Strike. I don't know if you played those. So I quite enjoyed those, but I know for a fact this is not at all that kind of game. So,
well, it definitely has some similarities in terms of mission design. You'll see once you get in.
Actually, the biggest probably similarities I'm drawing, even before playing this, is actually probably Armored Core. I feel like this game will remind me of Armored Core because of the way, Armored Core, some of the missions in those games have you kind of assault these huge ships or huge mechs, and you're essentially flying in the air and launching missiles, shooting guns from the air. So I'm kind of expecting similar things from this game as well. I'm gonna go normal for this. I think
Normal sounds good. Yeah.
I keep saying I always go hard, but I think this time around I'm gonna go normal.
Yeah. Right. 6 degrees of movement might not make it the easiest first time.
I was just a child when the stars fell from the skies, but I remember how they built a cannon to destroy them, and in turn how that cannon brought war upon us. War was an abstract idea, nothing more than a show on TV. As a child, I only saw it as something that happened in some faraway land. Until that final day of summer. One day while on my way to school, I looked up in the skies. A sound like distant thunder. In the blue skies far above me, contrails drew dizzying circles around in a crazy waltz. A battle in the beautiful skies far away. I could not tear my gaze away from them. A deafening roar. Silhouettes appeared, as if to graze the hills and streak past me. The fighters played the cat or the mouse in turn as they climbed swiftly into the sky. One fleeing plane fell out of the skies, spiraling and spewing orange flames to crash by the Cape. The same Cape where my family lived. Now they only live in my memories of days past. The victor circled around to confirm the kill. And on his craft, there was a large number 13 emblazoned in yellow. I will never forget this. The Allies retreated across the ocean before the onslaught of the enemy. Our little town in the heart of the mainland fell into deep isolation.
All right, well, that was all very loud music, and I could barely hear the guy's VO.
Planetfall of the Ulysses 1994 XF04 asteroids. Stonehenge, the Erusian weapon of mass destruction, was originally built to shoot down asteroids. Upon discovering its potential as an anti-aircraft weapon, the Erusians ruled the skies over the mainland. The ISAF's attempts to destroy Stonehenge through airstrikes failed. As a result, strategic positions on the mainland were lost. This in turn forced ISAF to evacuate from the east coast to North Point. ISAF GHQ is regrouping its remaining combat forces at North Point. However, the Erusians control most parts of the mainland, and they have forward-deployed bombers to Wrigley Air Base, a former ISAF facility. This bomber force will attempt to deal a lethal blow to the ISAF at North Point from this strategic position.
Well, Ian, I hope you're not going to quiz me on all the names and acronyms and everything that were unloaded on us right there.
Don't worry about it. It's a fairly simple story. It takes a lot of inspirations from World War II. The Ace Combat world is sort of a world separate from our own, inspired by our own. Draws a lot from modern political events, but has its own flair. So as you play through the series, you develop a feeling for, each nation. You often play from the perspective of people from different nations throughout the series.
So you're not following one person in
No.
his jet.
No, you play as an unnamed character in each game.
Yeah, this actually reminds me quite a bit of Front Mission, the way they just take the geopolitical landscape that is very close to our world maybe, but also just rename everyone to a different name, and but in the end it's, hey, this is actually US and this is actually Japan and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the story is really effective in this game, especially for being essentially a slideshow. There are no fancy CG cutscenes. There's no fancy dialogue or conversations or a ton of in-game cutscenes, anything like that. A lot of it is radio chatter and then these still images. Actually, the previous game, Ace Combat 3, would be one that I think you'd like. I haven't actually sunk my teeth into it yet, but that one is, I think, the Western version. They cut a ton of content out, but the Japanese version, which is a fan translation, has full anime cutscenes produced by Madhouse. It's a 2-disc game with branching paths, with that very like Ghost in the Shell Y2K kind of like, whoa, the internet, guys, like Evangelion inspired plotline. It goes much harder into the sci-fi territory. It's set like after all these other games. These ones are a lot simpler in their presentation.
That sounds cool. Yeah, actually, to mention this game, this is a US like Western version of Ace Combat 4 we're playing here. Actually, this screen, Ian, tell me, am I choosing something here, or because I can use the left analog stick to, it says select combat area, but what am I selecting?
So I can't quite remember. I think this is just getting different vantage points of what the fight is going to look like when you jump in, where your allies are and where the enemies are.
There was a tutorial option on the main menu, and I'm kind of maybe regretting not choosing that first, because I feel like the next screen is going to be me flying in a jet.
No, I think you'll be okay.
Okay, briefing, buy, sell. So what kind of... Okay, I can buy an aircraft, I can buy weapons. So can I customize my aircraft? Or is it just buying them?
You do get some, just some really light customization in this game. Mostly the weapons that you buy for your aircraft. You can choose which ones you want to stick on. Remember that the menus are really nice in this game. I love the UI. How stylish these purchase screens are.
Yeah, I mean, they look like a Metal Gear Solid menus.
And the music too. It's great music.
Okay, save load. Well, so we had the briefing already, right? There's no need to...
Yeah, just if you want to rewatch it.
Right, okay. Well, I can't buy anything, I don't think. I just have my my basic default plane. Don't really have anything here. So might as well just start the mission. F4E, fighter. Okay, I got some stats. A weapons, gun. Oh man, this UI is nice, but at the same time, when you have like a bright background and then you have white...
It's not super legible, yeah.
No. Okay, I've got a gun, I got a missile, I guess, and something else.
UGBM.
Cool. Yep.
So that's the kind of weapon that you can buy for your aircraft if you want a different one. Okay. So every ship has your regular machine gun fire, your missiles which are locked on, homing missiles, and then you can bring out your bombs that you can drop. So there's missions where you have to drop bombs on certain sites or ground vehicles, tanks, and things like that.
Okay, so how... I guess I'll just have to learn in the sky. I'm hoping it's not going to be too complicated in terms of controls, because... Oh. Okay. My gun.
And you can switch to third person mode if you'd prefer.
Oops. Sorry, guys.
So that's your homing missile.
How do I... Okay, so the L1 and R1 is like a pitch, I guess?
Yeah, pitch if you want to shift left and right, and then the other ones are your speed.
Oh, this is also inverted controls. Well, at least up and down. If I pull up on a controller, it goes down. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's how planes actually work, but I don't like it that way. If there's an option, I need to switch it.
Yeah, I think you could probably switch it right now. Hopefully you don't have to exit the mission to do that. Well, yeah, it looks like you do.
Oh, well, that's fine. I can deal with it. It's just... So my teammates kind of went ahead. How do I speed up? Was it L2?
L2 or R2?
What is my speed on the...
Your speed is
there.
yeah. So you're not going any faster. I don't know which button you have mapped.
Oh, is it default? I didn't touch the controls.
There you go. That's slow down. Yeah.
Okay, let's get these guys then. I guess my mission, I kind of missed it. I wasn't paying attention, but I guess it's to destroy something.
Yeah.
Let's destroy the red things, Ian.
That sounds good. So see the one red target that's blinking?
Yeah.
So that means you've automatically locked on to this guy.
Oh.
So I think square might be switched between different lock-on targets.
No, square is minimap, bigger minimap.
Might be triangle then. Something like that.
Oh,
You hit him.
nice.
It usually takes 2 missiles to take down someone.
How does it always lock on automatically then?
Yes. So there you've locked on. Yeah.
So is there like how much physics are involved in this game? Like, let's say, if I get close to somebody, can I ram them or like collide with them? Let's say.
Yeah, you would blow up if that happened, but it does work. So I would drop your speed if you want to turn sharper.
I feel like the gun is if I can just use the
machine gun?
yeah.
Yeah, you can. It's not a bad option if you've really got someone in your sights and you're close enough to them.
Oh! I feel like I should have been destroyed there.
Well,
God.
the game does have a third-person mode, so I'm assuming that when you banked, that the wing of your ship would have twisted out of the way.
How do I switch to third-person mode then?
Don't remember. It might be like L3 or R3.
No. It's fine. Actually, I think I would prefer to play this game in first person anyway.
I prefer first person. And you do have a bullet count on the right, so you don't have unlimited machine gun fire. However, there is a mechanic where you can actually leave the boundaries of the mission, and you can return to your ship.
Oh yeah.
And that will refill you, and then you have to take back off again. So you lose some time in the mission, but it lets you recharge.
So is there any way to see what my mission parameters are? Like, let's say what's left to do here. I guess just destroy everything that's in red.
Yeah.
So my allies, are they also doing their own thing, or are they helping me?
Yep. They're not great at it, but they're there. Yeah.
Oh,
You're
no
out of
bullets.
yeah. You've got 42 missiles though, so you should be all right.
I feel like I'm pretty safe here. Like, nobody's really engaging me that much. Maybe that will change as you play the game, but
The game takes it very easy on you at first, and this is probably the easiest game in the series. And you're playing on normal.
yeah, I guess.
For the people who are really into it, this game, the series can pose some serious challenges. Especially because a lot of, at least in 4, a lot of the missions are just when you destroy enemies, you gain points. You can see at the top left, and
Yeah.
it will be like score 2,000 points in 5 minutes or something like that. So it's for those who are really into the game, you can replay the game again and again and try to do it faster, try to take down more targets for a higher score, that kind of thing.
Everything is quite dark in this replay. These planes.
Yeah, I wonder if that's it's an emulation bug or something.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember being like that on PS2.
Thanks to your efforts, the enemy bomber strike was averted. However, our victory will be meaningless should you fail the next mission.
Okay.
The war seemed to unfold in the blink of an eye. I don't remember exactly when the forces from the west occupied my town. I was too busy scanning the skies day after day, waiting for Yellow 13 to reappear. Before I knew it, everything changed. The language they taught us at school. Our friendly local sheriff disappeared and was replaced by foreign MPs. In the beginning, some people secretly tuned into broadcasts from North Point on their parabolic antennas. But as time passed, the broadcast no longer came in. Maybe the satellites were destroyed. All non-military computer networks were shut down. Gasoline was rationed to civilians. Though we lived in the 21st century, we were reduced to using crystal radios and horse-drawn carts. I moved in with my uncle in town, who used to be a taxi driver. Out of gasoline and out of work, my uncle did nothing but to drown himself in drink. I earned my keep by playing the harmonica in the town bar, the one thing I was good at. I'd play for sullen occupation soldiers in exchange for their charity and loose change, and used the money to support my uncle and myself. My uncle trash-talked the barkeep who catered to the enemy soldiers, but he never refused the money I brought home. As for myself, I had a crush on the barkeep's only daughter, who was a little older than me. Another day passed, yet still no sign of the fighter plane Yellow 13 in the skies above our town.
Why why would he care about this some random ass plane like he saw one day? That's like
Because that plane destroyed his the town where his parents lived.
Oh, okay, cool. I feel like there's quite a lot of backstory for somebody, for like a character that, like, do you play as him? But because you said you play as different people, you don't really play as anyone named. But actually, in the cutscenes between missions, you have this very specific boy, or is he like, is he just a civilian, or are you playing as him in the future, like now?
I can't remember exactly. I think it's implied that this is the story leading up to the events of this game, that's your character reflecting on their past. But
Right.
I can't remember for sure. It's been a long time since I've played this game.
I think it said there 2004 is the actual date.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2004.
Yeah, in this alternate reality.
Yeah, which yes.
Their intentions are clear. A full-scale strike on our forces at North Point is imminent. Your mission is to catch these bombers on the ground and destroy them.
So, does this game have mission types that are something other than, hey, go destroy these planes or go destroy this?
It has a few. It doesn't have a ton that aren't.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do with mission types and designs when you're flying a plane. I guess you could do like an escort mission or refueling mission, something like that.
There are some of those. The sequel, Ace Combat 5, really expands on that kind of stuff. There's a lot of interesting concepts. Like you have companions that have their own voices, and you can give them some orders with the D-pad during fights. And they have some missions where there'll be things like, we all need to go through this barrier, so we all have to pass the line at exactly the same time, or else all the alarms get triggered, that kind of thing. So they start playing around with more of that stuff, which probably makes the missions a little less replayable. I'd say that 4 feels a little leaner and a little more replayable than 5 does.
Yeah, but for now, I'm definitely missing that kind of a character that I'm playing as, or that I'm following their story. Yeah, there's this boy, but at the same time, the actual person that's flying the plane is like a nobody, really, and there's nobody else. Nobody's talking to him. Your commander in the military is talking to you for like about the mission, but yeah, I feel like there's missing some sort of like actual characters you care about for now.
Yeah, I would say that 5 addresses that, although, funny enough, I think because the writing is more ambitious in the 5th one, I don't think it's as strong. I think it falls apart a little by trying to be more of a human story and more of a complex plot. I think actually 4 handled it better in its simplicity, but then that's just my preference.
So with the right stick, I can actually just have a look around.
Yeah.
Oh, what the hell is that? Some glitch. All right, so we just need to destroy a bunch of bombers, I think.
Yeah, speed up and keep up with your...
Oh. I feel like also the companions they give you here in this game, for now at least, they're like kind of there, but they're kind of more in the way than anything else.
So here you need to drop bombs, so I think you need to press select to switch to your from your missiles to the... Yeah. And then you can you press the same button to drop your bombs. You might have already... Yeah, you've already flown past the...
Oh.
See that reticle in front of you? You can see where it's going to drop, so you actually need to drop it way in advance.
Okay, let's circle around then. Bombs, I thought they would just drop underneath, so I was waiting for...
Well, they do, but you're also moving at, 100 kilometers an hour or whatever. I think they strike a nice balance of feeling realistic, like feeling grounded in reality, but also definitely being
I'm struggling
easy to
with
pick
these
up and
bombs.
play.
Let me just get some distance.
I remember there being definitely an adjustment period getting used to how this game handles. Once you do, it's really easy to pick up.
Yeah, I mean, the flying is okay, I think. I appreciate that it's not overly complex, or, you can definitely pick it up, just start playing it. So, Okay. No. There you go.
Oh, save him! You've only got one left.
Oh.
I don't know if you can complete the mission now.
Oh. Whoops.
Oh, okay, you did hit them. Yeah, they just take a long time to go off.
Oh man.
You might. I think you should just restart the mission, because yeah, I can't remember if it was 5 that added the return to base mechanic.
So how does this game handle this situation where I just wasted all my missiles? Because then, honestly, should just end the mission, just fail me. But actually, now where am I going even?
Well, if you open up the map, I think your teammates have moved over.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
There's a fight going on ahead, and I can't I think if you wanted to, you could try to complete the mission. You could try to complete the mission by just using your missiles on the regular targets, but that's certainly not going to be the best way. So now there's anti-aircraft guns that are going to try to take you out on the ground. You'll need to shoot your missiles at them.
It doesn't lock on to them though. Oh,
yeah,
no,
it does. There you go.
I feel like I'm flying really low, and isn't it true that like jets can't really fly that low, or like it's really hard?
Yeah, they take a lot of liberties here.
I appreciate that. I think that's one of the things that, as game designers or game developers in general, we need to like understand that unless you're making like a flight simulator, right, you should probably pick your battles in terms of realism, and I think this is a good compromise.
Realism is helpful because players can naturally intuit the rules of how something works. When in doubt, just assume it works like it does in real life. But I think maybe too often we just take things for granted because that's the way they are. We don't always consider that abstraction is one of our most powerful tools as game designers. To turn something into a rule means to some extent, always you have to divorce something from reality. And you can choose to what extent you want to abstract something.
Yeah, I think for sure. And actually, I would even consider that aspect a kind of core part of making games in a way.
Yeah.
Taking something from reality, let's say, and making it fun or relatable, or sometimes very close to reality, but always keeping that in mind that you have to make that call, make good judgment whether or not it's worth making it so realistic that it becomes not fun.
So what I'd recommend doing is when you're coming in close to those targets, it takes time for that missile to get sent out. And so after you fire, you can immediately press the switch target button to cycle to the next AA gun and send another missile at that.
Switch target.
Is it triangle?
Okay, I'll try that.
I think it's triangle.
I mean, yeah, but this is my plan essentially, to just circle around and keep shooting these guys.
This is where those bombs you could drop. I think they have a radius of effect.
Well,
and so you can take out a cloud of them.
So if my allies get killed, all of them, it doesn't fail me, right?
Doesn't affect you. No. I can't even remember if they can die or not.
Well, they are complaining about being... Okay, I'm feeling the guns shooting me, so I guess I'm getting damaged. But do I have like a health bar, or how do they?
Yeah, it's hard to see your head right now because you're facing the sky, but yeah. So at the bottom right, you can see that icon of your plane. It's green right now.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, it turns to red as different parts take damage. So you'll want to get in the habit of slowing down as you're banking and then speeding up as you straighten out. That'll really make your life easier.
What?
Oh, that means someone's locked onto you, so you need to swerve.
Ooh. Don't know if I did it.
Yeah, you did. You can see it on the mini-map when they send out a missile on you.
Right, okay. Can I see who's actually targeting me?
Yeah. It'll be one of those yellow arrows.
Those guys. Okay, well, I need to get rid of those guys.
You can, or you could probably just press ahead with destroying these targets.
No, they just told me to engage the bombers. There you go. Oh, it's a MiG. It's a Russian plane. Well, I guess. Do you know what a MiG means in Russian, Ian?
No, what does it mean?
It means instant. Or like, no, it's like more like an instant moment in time. Instantaneous. Oh, he's fast. Is he behind me now?
Yeah. He's the blinking arrow. Or no, or is that who you've got locked? Yeah, it's who you've got locked on.
So I noticed that just locking and shooting isn't really always enough. Is
So
there like a trick I can like? Is there like a good way of doing this?
Yeah, it's their orientation to you. So if they're traveling perpendicular to you, if they're moving sideways, you have a very hard time hitting them. But if you're directly behind them, and they're facing the same direction as you, or if you're headed straight into them, then they can't swerve as easily. They can't move from side to side as easily, and so you're pretty much at this point guaranteed to hit them.
Okay, yeah,
So
that makes sense.
It's more about their rotation relative to yours.
So I guess I can ignore the planes and just do these structures?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is from the era of games where they don't explain a lot of this stuff to you, but at least they give you such a safe first few missions that even when I played this like 10 years ago or so, I was able to just, you just slowly learn to intuit this stuff. But it does require you to sort of sit down and say, I'm going to learn this game. Luckily, it's relatively simple, but you certainly couldn't get away with it these days. And the newer ones do a much better job of tutorializing this stuff.
Yeah, I still, like I said before, I think from what I've been playing here, I think it's actually doing a pretty good job of striking that balance between complexity and fun, I guess, of flying a plane. Like, just on this mission, I was already like fighting that one guy, chasing him, trying to shoot him, shooting these targets. And considering this is a PS2 title, I guess no wonder this series survived as long as it did.
Yeah, it's sort of been off and on. There was a period there was one that came out during the PS3 360 generation where they shifted from this fictional world into a real Middle East setting. And it's clearly they wanted some sort of Call of Duty style audience. They added in this dogfighting mode where you could initiate a slow-mo and then you're locked onto them and you could focus on blasting with your machine gun. It looked very cool and cinematic, but I think as a player, you could feel how fake it was, that it was essentially like a QuickTime event. And so it takes away some of that realism, I think, that they strike here, where it feels like, even though it's an arcade style game, it feels like you're performing realistic plane actions and thinking like a pilot might when you're taking down your opponents.
Oh yeah, actually, I would go as far as to say that QuickTime events is the opposite of this game. Like adding QuickTime events would just be against everything that this game would need to stand for, as in like real time, Yeah, like non-instance, non-cutscene, actual physics combat with missiles that actually travel, with guns that actually shoot bullets. You know what I mean? Like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Even in this more of arcadey take on this, I would still expect that. And
Well,
yeah.
I don't think it worked out for them because I don't think the fans were too happy, and I still think it's a hard sell for a Call of Duty fan to get them to go from piloting a guy with a gun in first person to controlling an actual plane. And the series was on pause for a little bit. There was also a failed free-to-play thing, and I'm not sure how true this is, but I heard that with 7, that it was sort of their last stab at making an old school one, and then it became the best-selling entry in the series. So
When did that come out?
that came out around 2017, I think. That one has VR support as well. It's not exclusive to VR, but it's similar to some of the recent Resident Evil games where you can play it in VR. And so I'm assuming that they're gonna keep making them. So this is where you'd want to switch targets, and then you could really quickly hit that next hangar.
I tried to switch quickly, but it wasn't quick enough. I feel like there probably could have been a bit less less targets for me to destroy in this mission. Also, didn't they say at the start of the mission that I needed to engage and destroy like a group of bombers? But once the mission started, actually what I need to destroy is like this base. It's a bit weird. Maybe I misread.
I think something else that you have to get in the mindset of is the pilot chatter that you see in the subtitles at the top is often pretty important for gameplay stuff, because sometimes your objective will change mid-mission, or even just what's happening in the story of the mission. But it can be hard to, I think there's a balance to walk here. They don't always make it clear what is important and what isn't. So I think it's pretty easy for players to kind of drown it out and then miss something important.
Yeah, I had a feeling that what they're saying is probably at least semi-important. Yeah, but between trying to control this and talking to you, I kind of missed most of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, friend. Let's get this guy.
Nice.
Well, my friend is excited.
Oh, you ran out of time. Oh no.
Oh my god.
You had one target left.
One target?
I think you had like 1 or 2 warehouses left. Well, you can do this in no time at all now. You just blast ahead with these guys, and
Yeah.
maybe use the missile on that first base by itself, and then use the
Yeah.
the splash damage on the warehouses. You can do this mission in like 2 minutes if you know what you're doing. So at the top right is your time, which I think is reflected in your score as well. Maybe you do need to use bombs. Oh, okay. No, you're good. Nice.
Huh. I like how they say. I appreciate that when they say that I missed.
The music is great in this series as well. I think it strikes a really good balance between the sort of textured, cinematic score, but then you also have these hard rocking, melody driven hits. And these guys are optional.
Oh.
If they're not red. I think yellow means optional targets. red, if you bring up your full map, you can see where you have to go to take out those warehouses.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's just go there then. Because I'll run out of time again.
You've got 13 minutes.
Well, that wasn't enough last time. Nice. So these bombs, they don't lock on, right? I just need to...
Yeah.
Can I do the, what's the move called? The Cobra? Or was it the, you know, if someone's behind me, chasing me, can I go pull up and then fly
yes,
behind
you can.
them? Nice.
Some of the later levels also have you doing things like flying through incredibly narrow passages. As you can imagine, by the end of this game, you're taking down some kind of Metal Gear style, you know, orbital laser or death cannon or something like that, which usually has you pulling off some kind of, you know, Death Star maneuvers to destroy a weak point.
I would expect nothing less.
This is where using L1, R1 to pitch left and right while keeping your aim is handy.
L1, R1? That's speed up and speed down.
Oh, then it's then L2, R2. That one's not a required target, which is why it's white on the map.
Oh. Wait, that that guy was so low.
You're flying pretty low to the ground.
I know, but it's because you can, right? There's no reason reason
Yeah.
not to. I would say that I feel like it could be a bit more dangerous to, like, just even from enemies. They have AA guns there. They should be like blasting me. I shouldn't be able to just like zip around like that so freely.
Yeah, they do start to do that in later missions. You need to get further away from the ground because those AA guns will just rip right into you. And also, if these missions have fairly flat terrain, but some of the later missions have tons of peaks and valleys, and you're risking crashing and losing everything if you fly too close.
Do they have missions where your main objective is to like kind of fly well? Like let's say from you need to fly from A to B, and it's like you need to dodge the mountains, dodge other things.
There is a little bit of that, yeah. There's some missions where you have to fly in trenches, because if you fly over a certain altitude, then you'll be detected by this this enemy base, and it's game over. Nice.
Oh, okay. So the bombers were parked at the base.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think we have time for one more mission, actually.
Yeah.
Airstrike on North Point was averted.
So, I have earned some money. I'm hoping I could buy something maybe this time.
One night, a spirited group made their way up the bar. chased out the sullen army grunts, and commandeered the place. Even I knew who they were. The patch on their sleeve was the mark of the proud Air Force. A loud-mouthed, middle-aged man went around, announcing each pilot's results for the day and his running kill record. For those who exceeded 5 kills, a thorough toasting and soaking followed. I believe it was their custom to call a pilot an ace once he shot down 5 planes. After completing the day's review, the same guy, the squadron adjutant, went on to announce, "And now, for our leader's results." Everyone turned around to look at the quiet man who sat alone, strumming a guitar. I found myself drawn to the music from his guitar. Our Yellow 13 bagged 3 more today, bringing his new tally up to 64 kills. With a tentative smile, the man with the guitar turned to me and asked me to accompany him on my harmonica. I brought it up to my lips and I started a new song. I had finally found him. But by some fluke, it was my father's favorite song. The one he used to play at the end of each day.
The Allied forces are retreating, and survivors are gathering at the northern port of St. Arc. However, the radar facilities atop Mount Shesna provide tactical support to the enemy. As a result, our evac mission is...
Actually, now that I'm looking at this map, I feel like you're fighting for a lost cause. There's a lot more red than blue.
and hiding our troop movements.
I think this north point is supposed to be, you know, a thin parallel to Britain during World War II.
Hmm. Okay, let's see if I can buy. So, if I buy aircraft, who's actually piloting it? And okay,
That's you. It's just if you want a different ship.
Like, I literally cannot do anything on this menu. Nothing.
You can't afford this one?
I mean, I don't even know what this is. F5. Oh wait,
So you can purchase it.
I can. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Let's try it. Purchase. Yes. Okay. So I feel like this is kind of like a progression system and a bit less like a shop.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's a linear line from left to right here, but it's not quite a straight progression. There are some options of like, would you prefer something a little faster, or would you prefer something that can hold more multiple types of sub-weapons, or something with slightly higher capacity of missiles, that kind of thing. But more or less, I mean, the ships to the right are better than the ships to the left.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking at this bar thing where I just purchased the next thing, right? I guess that's... Okay, so can we buy a weapon? I guess not.
So, well, yes. So you can buy a sub weapon like the bombs that you used last mission. You could buy some for this weapon. You might as well.
Yep. Okay, what is this screen?
So now you already, it came with one weapon and you've bought
Okay.
the second weapon. So there's no more things that you can buy for this ship. You've maxed out your options.
Right. Okay.
So when you go to start the mission, they'll give you your choice of aircraft and they'll give you your choice of sub weapon.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. let's jump in then.
So you can check out those stats.
Okay, so here I can then choose. So this is faster, but air to ground is not amazing. Oh, much more stable. Yeah, let's try it.
So that's so the UGBS is what you used last mission.
Well, let's try the new thing, I guess.
This combat area is within enemy airspace. Keep an eye on your vehicles. Use Vector 180 to return home after exploring the target.
I'd say this looks pretty good for a game released in 2001.
Yeah, this looks pretty decent.
Because there's only so many things going on at once, they can have pretty intensive battles with a ton of enemies in them, and they can put all their budget towards, I guess, just a ton of fairly high resolution textures for the time. You tend not to get too close. Oh, there's another emulation artifact.
Yeah.
That square going on around that effect.
Oh man, that guy escaped me.
Now, what's the bigger map say? Do you have to destroy these guys? No.
Nah, okay, let's... Yeah, these optional guys are almost like... They almost know that if I get distracted with them, I'm gonna fail the mission because of time. That's smart. Okay, so I need to show something on the ground, right? So let's try these new things. Oh, it's like that. I feel like the normal rocket is probably... Oh, okay, that worked.
They're swarming in. Fox 2, Fox 2. Target is neutralized. I'm right behind him. Good going.
So would a single missile take me out then?
No, it would take probably 4 missiles to take you out. It takes
Okay,
about 2.
I'm gonna do a Cobra now, Ian. Oh, where am I?
The camera didn't really know what to do there.
Oh God. Well, I think I did it.
You're cruising at some serious altitude now.
Oh shit.
Probably needed to slow down as you were doing that.
Need to get these Russians.
Locked on. Missile hit. Target destroyed by Mobius 1.
Oh man.
Mobius 1, passing over Krasinski Crater. We've got ourselves a dogfight. Engage. Good job, Mobius 1. Mobius 1 destroyed the target.
Looks like you're coming to grips with the controls pretty well.
Yeah. I think this, I mean, definitely this game still probably has quite a few tricks up its sleeve in terms of controlling and maneuvers and stuff like that, which is good. But like at the same time, the basic controls end up being pretty understandable.
Yeah, the UI and the lack of explanation can be a little off-putting at first, but when you get down to it, there's really just a few simple actions that you perform throughout the whole game. And I guess like an arcade game, it's more about just growing in your skills rather than entering. It's not like there's a ton of twists coming in throughout the game. You won't pick up new planes that will add a ton of new mechanics, mostly the form of some sub-weapons that you'll get. But
yeah, and there was also that tutorial option that I just didn't choose. So if I had played that, maybe I would have been in an even better position. Mission update.
All aircraft take vector 180 south. Mobius 1, you're heading the wrong way. Vector 180 south immediately. Use the return line on the map to exit combat area and return to base.
okay, yeah, they do have the return to base system in this one.
I need to cross that checkered line.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they have it in this one where if you do that in the middle of a mission, then you'll return to the base and refuel. I think you gain back your health. They'll refill all of your weapons, and then you can return to the battlefield. So you mostly just lose some time.
Actually, is the fuel a thing here in this game?
No. I don't think so.
I feel like they could have added that. I don't think it would have.
I think 5 has that. I think 5 has some periods where you have to return to the base mid-mission.
Oh, I need to land. Nice.
You can press the start button to skip this because
No, I want to land.
just don't crash.
So do I just position myself, or do I actually have to like?
Just position yourself and start to slow down.
Nice.
Well, there's our time. Perfect timing.
Yes. Oh, nice, man. I like that they have this. It's weird that you can skip this though. I feel like it's a critical part of your mission to actually land safely.
I could see if you did the whole mission and it took you like 10 minutes and then you crashed the landing and had to restart, you might be bummed.
I guess. But then you just restart the landing. I don't know.
And I guess as well, this part doesn't... I don't think this part affects the time in your mission because time does affect your score. Because then the efficient thing to do would be fly in as hard as you can and then try to land as fast as you can without crashing the plane, and that would suck too.
There you go.
The evac and regrouping efforts are proceeding as scheduled.
I like these arrows that they generate based on your patterns.
Oh, is that how I was flying?
Yeah.
Ah, nice. Okay, well, cool. That was Ace Combat 4. I think I quite enjoyed it. It was actually almost exactly like I expected. It didn't bore me with overly simulation stuff. Like it wasn't sim enough to kind of detract from the arcade bits, which I was more interested in. Actual flying the plane and controlling the plane was intuitive enough to pick up straight away. I think with the second mission, I was more or less comfortable. I even didn't mind the inverted look. I just kind of got used to it. It's not perfect for sure. I think the machine gun ended up being not that useful. I know you mentioned that it's something you can use for sure, but I think the missiles end up being way more easy to use and just
they're your bread and butter.
Yeah. I think for the long, like if playing this game fully, I would kind of probably expect to have a bit more, I guess, character development. But again, this game is not gonna have it. But it's something I like in my militarized sci-fi flavored games. Again, kind of bringing up games like Front Mission and Armored Core, where there's a bit more personal touch. There's specific characters that appear, named characters that talk to you, that kind of give you the actual mission, maybe have a bit more input on the way the story progresses. So
that's definitely something that the sequels start to deliver on.
Yeah. So actually, in terms of sequels, do you think if you compare the sequels to Ace Combat 4, do you think they strayed away from this particular formula we played here, or did they stick more or less to what they know and continue that to the latest games? And overall, do you think they improved or became worse?
It's tough to say. I think they knew what to change and how much to change for each entry. Where 5 has a more involved story with these AI partners that you can direct during combat, but the moment-to-moment gameplay is essentially the same as 4. After that, there was a prequel, 0, which actually changes some cutscenes and things based on your playstyle, and it has these cheesy but really fun full motion video cutscenes with live actors that are sort of talking about your character, and they will say different things about you based on what kind of pilot you were. So they'll say, oh, he was a brave pilot and he flew in a battle. Or they'll say, oh, he was cunning and he held back and knew when to strike. There's some cool twists in the formula. 6 added online multiplayer. I kind of bounced off 6. It's one of those things where, again, it's the same kind of basic formula, but the missions stretched on maybe a little too long. The story didn't hook me. And then 7, they didn't change a ton with 7, but 7 is like, it's the first traditional one in about a decade. So in a lot of ways, it was just about reminding people that the franchise is back. And so I haven't actually played that one, although now that I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, geez, I do have a flight stick that I picked up for my PC. I was waiting when 7 came out. I was waiting to get myself a flight stick, and I finally have one now. I have an Ace Combat 6 360 flight stick, so now I can play 7 the way it was meant to be played. I mean, sans VR headset, but now I'm really looking forward to it.
Nice. So as far as you know, 7 is kind of, I guess, similar to 4. Then that's how they kind of brought it back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has all of the improvements they've added throughout the series: a more involved story, online multiplayer. Well, I don't actually know if it's online multiplayer, but it has a lot of the other things they've added throughout the series, but sort of in this way where it's almost like a greatest hits of past entries. And a lot of fans who felt like 4 was their favorite in the series said that 7 fulfilled all those desires.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, that was Ace Combat 4 Shattered Skies. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back for the second game, which is Legend of the Dragoon. Right, we're back.
Legend of Dragoon.
Legend of Dragoon. What a game. So, this was developed by Japan Studio, RIP. Around 99 came out.
Yeah, rip.
99, 2000, 2001. And
2001? 2001? That's a really late release.
yes.
Was that in
Yeah,
Europe?
that Europe was 2001. I think I played it around that time when it came out. It was the time of, again, the golden age, and you know, if you told somebody who hasn't seen this before that this was Final Fantasy, 7.2 or the next Final Fantasy, they would believe you, because obviously this game took a lot of inspiration from Final Fantasy 7 and 8, and it was just in line with those games. It had a really interesting world. You just get lost in it. Characters that would remind you of games like Final Fantasy 7 and 8, and it just came out at that time where people were really hungry for those games and consuming them, and I was one of them, and it really stood out to me. The cutscenes, specifically the CG cutscenes, were really well made, first of all, of course, but also, I guess, really visceral. Like, you see these characters fighting these, whatever they're fighting in each cutscene, or and then once you start playing, you would be able to turn into these dragoons, and the transformations, again,
Reminds me of Breath of Fire a little bit.
yeah,
If you've ever played those games where you have a second form you can turn into.
yeah, exactly that, actually.
I had a copy of this game as a kid. I remember I went to a pawn shop because I wanted to buy Final Fantasy VII, and they did not have a copy. Back then, this is like circa 2005. FF7 was a weirdly expensive game. It was probably about 70 Canadian dollars for a copy, or 50 bucks or something like that. And this is back in that glorious era where like any decent SNES or PS1 game could be had for like $5, $10, $20. So I think the guy at the pawn shop said, well, this is, here's another RPG you could buy. And it was like $8 or something like that. So I picked this up, and I probably played like half an hour or something like that. And I don't know why I wasn't drawn in. I had a friend who quite liked this game as well. I think at the time I just felt like, yeah, this was like a medieval fantasy setting. I had, I really wanted something that was more of like a cyberpunk kind of thing. Just at the time, I just wasn't in the right mindset, I think, to enjoy this kind of game.
Oh yeah, this game is definitely not like a cyberpunk. It's a lot more, again, specifically coming back to Final Fantasy 7, it's that like tech plus fantasy, but kind of mostly fantasy. The Final Fantasy setting, essentially. Like, even looking at this guy, he might as well be like a boss in Final Fantasy. Like, this whole aesthetic that they had, heavily inspired by those games of that time, for sure. But at the same time, I don't think people remember this game as some sort of clone of any of them. I think it stood out by itself, on its own. And actually, I mentioned that it has staying power last episode. People have been asking for a remake of this game for a very long time. So much so that it hasn't happened yet, but they recently released a patch for this game, if you can believe it, for like the PlayStation version on PSN. Apparently that version has had some graphical issues. It's not a big deal, but they actually had people, Sony had people spend their time today in 2023 to fixing a bug here in the PSN version of this game, which is crazy to me as a developer.
That's probably not on the game side. That's probably on like the emulation side, right?
Well, I guess so, yeah, maybe. But still, just to even have somebody bother to spend resources on fixing anything in such an old game, unless it's a game-breaking bug. If it was like a bug that you couldn't play the game, fair enough. But it was like some sort of graphical issue. So still, they fixed it. So my point is that they definitely are aware how much people like this game and liked it throughout the years.
In the years since I first played this game, I could have come back to it, and I felt like for years I heard people say, yeah, this is definitely one of the more middling PS1 RPGs, not one of the best. Although in recent years, I feel like I've seen more people come out of the woodwork to say that they really like it. So I'm interested to hear why you want me to play this and why you like it so much.
I think it's just that type of game that I really enjoyed and still enjoy, of that pure adventure. You gather your friends, they join your party, and then you're just off an adventure solving this, mystery of the world. There's an ancient race of Winglies involved, how they are connected to what's happening now. There's interesting mysterious characters that the character we just saw before, this woman called Rose, how she plays into this. And yeah, that's all you need, really. Interesting characters and motivation, a world that you want to explore, and you're off on your adventure, right? It's what Final Fantasy VII did, and that's what this game did, and I think it did pretty successfully.
I gotta say, at the time that this came out, I mean, these days, graphics are graphics, and it's an old game that's always going to look like that. We don't really care, but I'm kind of surprised that for a game that came out, around 2000, from Sony themselves, this is, in terms of production values, this doesn't look half as good as, like, Chrono Cross or FF9 or Vagrant Story, whatever Square was pumping out.
Well, but this looks on par or even better than Final Fantasy VII, to be honest, if you look at it.
Yeah, but it did come out about 3 years later.
Sure.
I mean, it doesn't matter too much to us these days because it's an old game regardless. But I am surprised that Sony wasn't doing more with the hardware.
I mean, obviously this game is not perfect. Even back then, the localization is...
Yeah, some of these lines.
There was just before he was sitting there and looking at something like, the chance of war are likely. It's like, I mean, it is what it is. I think Final Fantasy VII as well, we kind of had a similar issue.
It's also pretty hard to convey a lot of stuff when these people move around like animatronics. There's not like a ton of emotion that you can gain from them. It pretty much has to all come through these text boxes.
Actually, yeah, it's...
That's why these visual novels are so wordy. Everybody has to explain everything, and they tend to use a big mix of a lot of exclamation marks and question marks.
It's true. Like, actually, you're right, and it's funny to think about it that way, because you barely see their faces, or you just see their movement. But if he's sad or angry, the only way he can express that is, I guess, like...
Just to say, I am sad, I am angry.
Some sort of
Pretty
crazy
much.
movements or these text boxes. So I guess once you sit down and have to, like, compose a scene, script a scene like that, it becomes... I guess it becomes a challenge. And it was a challenge for the development team back then. So this game had a traditional turn-based ATB combat system, but it actually did a bit more with the actual fighting.
Yeah, it's very Mario RPG with the timings, right? Where you have to press the button just the right time to score extra hits.
Yeah, you can actually do a pretty long combo, I think up to 7 hits. And you can also counter their hits. If they counter you, you can keep that going as well. So, and I think this reminds me actually of Final Fantasy 13, where they really tried to not just have your usual command, attack, defend, magic, but also once you do attack, they wanted to involve you a bit more to kind of not keep you awake, I guess you could say. And and I appreciate that, because I think that's really what is needed even today. In the day of ATB going away, or at least in some circles being looked down upon, I think what is really could bring it back is these innovative ways of having the overall ATB system and then adding these more of action elements, but still keeping that general idea of combat screen and random battles.
I hate when games have a chest or something very like at a save point, stuff that's very like gamey, sitting in the middle of the emotional cutscene, and you're thinking, I just want to open that chest and know what's inside. I'm assuming this is a save point. If I was to, okay, yeah, this is a nice menu. This kind of parchment paper color. This is really pretty compared to the very kind of bland text boxes.
Yeah.
This is nice. Why don't I wish all the menus kind of had this sort of Legend of Mana look to them. Valkyrie profile looking menus. Use it. Oh, this is great music too.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that even the intro cutscene with the village being burned, that music there, as I remember it to this day, it's so iconic. Most of the music, a lot of music in this game is really good.
Boss, hang on.
Is he gonna be okay?
Ah. I think it's interesting that Japan Studio made a game like this, because the way I would think, if you're Sony and you're developing games this late into the PlayStation's lifespan, that you're probably looking to address areas where the library is lacking. And I think you can see this later on in Sony Japan's history and the way that PlayStation tends to run a lot of their studios, where they'll be like, we don't have enough casual games. We have a lot of hardcore games. So this studio, you're tasked with making casual games, or you're tasked with making platformers. We don't have enough platformers for the system. So to have this team make like a very traditional RPG on a console that was probably the greatest console RPG library of all time is interesting.
I guess you could see it that way, but at the same time, I don't remember feeling that. I guess objectively, if you look back, you could say it was oversaturated with these type of games. But again, I feel like overall, I think we talked about this before as well. You would play one game for a long time. You weren't spoiled for choice that much if you were playing games often. I remember having a lot of times playing this game. I think I finished it maybe 2 or 3 times.
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, maybe the answer to the question is what genre is the PlayStation lacking in? Because it has such a great library. And maybe they looked around and said, we kind of have all our bases covered, so you can kind of just make whatever you want. Whereas I would argue maybe even during like the PS2 generation, it would have made more sense to, at the very least, Sony would have had teams pushing things like their iToy hardware or things like that.
Yeah, also back then, it was a different time, right? 99 was the first Xbox even out? I don't think it was. I think it was like
no.
So it was only
2001,
like
yeah.
Nintendo and Sega, the only competition.
Yeah. I mean, certainly those consoles didn't have RPG libraries at all. Everything was on PlayStation.
That video.
So when I don't think I'm allowed to beat this guy. I feel like. So the question is, do I waste my healing items trying to beat him?
You know what? It's been so long. I actually won't be able to advise you on these specific moments.
That's probably for the best. I should play it blind. Yeah. The guy from the cutscene. So have you ever played the Mario RPG games?
Actually, no, I didn't.
Interesting. I mean, I don't think that'd be the kind of thing that you'd enjoy because the story is... It's not that there's no story, but they're very lighthearted and simple. But maybe just mechanically be worth taking a look, getting you to play those sometime, because what they do here in Legend of Dragoon is like a very stripped down version of the amount of action elements that they have in the Mario RPG games. There's a lot of cool ideas in there.
Are those the same? Are those the Paper Mario?
Yeah, so Squaresoft made Mario RPG, and then that sort of turned into the Paper Mario games, and there's also the Mario and Luigi games.
Yeah.
So they're all kind of under that same umbrella. Maybe I get you to play one of the Paper Mario games.
I appreciate how this, now looking at this game, you playing it, I like how it doesn't really take long for the game to drop you into action straight away. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
meander. And that's how I remember this game in general, where it's like it was always pushing you forward and on your kind of main plot story. I don't even remember, this game must have side quests, but I just remember really enjoying the main plot.
Yeah, I don't know if you've played some of these modern RPGs that have really long, slow openings. It can be like an hour before you get into battle sometimes, in the worst cases. But contrast those with some of the greater Final Fantasy games. Some of those games like 6, 7, 9, those have amazing openings in terms of pacing and getting players into the meat of things right away.
Well, that was one of the concerns we had before starting this podcast, where because we would be looking at quite a few older games, we were concerned that an hour for each may not be enough to even get to any sort of gameplay. But actually, I think for now, I don't think we had any kind of issues with that.
Yeah, not so bad. Actually, FF8 might have been the slowest one.
Yeah, actually.
Which might have been why I bounced off a little bit. I think that first time when I really briefly tried it on my own. I think I mentioned that in the first episode. But yeah, I do like that this game has... I mean, it got me into a few fights. It's told me a little bit about our character. It's told me a bit about the world. And it's been clear that there's a princess that I need to save. And that there's, this evil empire. So they've set the stakes and my goal in the story pretty quickly.
Yeah, and the story goes pretty grand pretty quickly, I think. Especially with that race of wind people.
Okay. Whoa!
Where are you gonna go?
Interesting.
Where will you go, Ian?
Where will I go? Well...
Actually...
Oh, so you don't move around the world, you move on linear lines. Interesting.
Okay. I guess if I don't remember if they give you like different paths and, if the path splits at some point, but it's actually a good way of making sure people don't waste time on exploring things that actually don't really have anything.
Do I even have money?
I have 52 gold.
I always want to get a couple status ailment items.
Smart.
Yeah, always want to have one of each. I don't think I need the encounter stuff because I probably need the levels this early on. I definitely don't need to. Yeah.
Speaking of encounters,
yeah, what's the encounter rate like in this game, and is there grinding?
there's different grinding. I don't remember about the rate itself. Having that potion is not a good sign. Maybe they thought it might be a bit too high for some people. But actually, speaking of that, that reminded me, I forgot to mention when we were talking about Pixel Remaster, you know, one of the things they added with those versions is the ability to get a lot, like 4 times more experience and turn off random battles, which to me sounds really crazy because you're still turning off one of the pillars of that game, of those games. And because you can turn off the random encounters, then how would you get the experience? Well, then you would turn on the 4 times experience from story battles, and then suddenly you have no more random encounters. I think it really shows how little Square Enix has faith in that system overall, ATB and random encounters. They really are afraid of people being bored of them and hating them. If you're so afraid of that, like, what does that tell you and tell players about their confidence in making another game, maybe a mainline Final Fantasy that has random encounters, has ATB? That doesn't bode well for any of that.
No, I don't think they're interested in doing that right now. It seems that the preferences, times have changed, and people don't want that kind of stuff these days. A lot of people see that stuff as archaic.
But that can't be true, right? This Persona exists. Persona fucking exists. Like,
yeah, but Persona doesn't do Final Fantasy numbers. It's probably how they see it.
Oh man, that's a
yeah. I'm not saying that it's bounded, but interesting. I hope this isn't one of those. Oh yeah, this is one of those areas where they loop you around, but there's also encounters. I noticed that the arrow above my head changes colors to signify if there's an encounter coming up, which is kind of nice.
Oh yeah, that is actually pretty convenient. And this game, surprisingly for its age, had really kind of forward thinking in terms of, like, I'm not gonna call it accessibility, but maybe convenience.
Yeah. It's interesting though, you talking about turning off the encounters. I've been playing some GBA games on the Nintendo Switch online service, which has a rewind function. At any time you can hold down 2 buttons and you can bring up a menu, and you can basically rewind the slideshow of your gameplay. So sometimes I'm replaying a couple games, and sometimes when it looks like I'm about to game over, or if I get hit by the enemy, instead of getting game over and being reset back to that spot, I will just rewind. But Nintendo put this stuff in knowingly, so what does that say about the punishment of game overs these days? Like, is even that an outdated concept? Nintendo made a game a long time ago, Wario Land 2, and in that game, Wario has no health. In that game, you often have to get hit by enemies in order to progress. And it has kind of a puzzle-style gameplay, but even then, when you get hit by normal enemies that don't change your properties, you still lose coins, and you need to spend these coins in a minigame at the end of each level if you want to unlock new levels. So there's still a penalty for getting hit. It still feels bad to get knocked back and to see your coins fly out of you. And turns out that can be just as interesting of a failure system as a game over, while being a lot less punishing because it doesn't require you to redo things and lose time and stuff like that. It makes you think, do we just take this stuff for granted? And do we even need stuff like game overs in a lot of games these days?
Well, I think you are right in that it's an interesting question, and I do think that game over is under attack these days. Like, I don't want to sound like a crazy, like some sort of MAGA head or something. Game overs are under attack. But the point is that the game over is an integral part of what makes a game. Not every game even needs to have a game over. It doesn't make sense for some of them, for sure. But for most games, it does make sense. And it's okay if you want to try something different alongside game over, or something kind of like a different approach to that. But to say that games, game over is outdated, or they don't need a game over state, or games are not about that, is really missing the point of games. And I think there's a lot of talk nowadays, in especially in the space of accessibility, that kind of going that way where game over as a concept is being challenged, even though it's such a fundamental pillar of gaming that it just needs to be left alone.
I think it depends on what the game's asking of you. I mean, when you game over, it's I think you can think of it as like you failed the exam, so you have to take the test again. You know, the game won't let you progress until you have shown that you understand the things that it's asking of you. So I guess it, you know, I'm not even saying take away fail states, but I guess you can just rethink, you know, what does a fail state need to be? Does it have to be restarting the exam, or could it be something else?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's definitely room for imaginative ways to challenge players. Like, again, for example, a World of Warcraft, that game from 2004, when you die, because it's an MMO, obviously you're still playing, but you have to corpse run to where your body died, and you have to pick it up in a ghost form. That's just one of the ways you could do it. But nowadays, what some would say, hey, actually, you should be able to switch on a god mode, because dying in a game, failing to, you know, a challenge can be upsetting to you. So why not have a god mode? And to me, that's very, I don't know, almost insulting to the concept of a game and a challenge. What's a challenge without a fail state?
Well, you know, back when we were kids, in like say the PS1 days, a lot of games had cheat codes for things like God mode that you could turn on. And as players, maybe just the way it's framed, because I can see the argument of why shouldn't you be able to bring back something like that. But I guess the way that they framed it back then was that it was a cheat, that you knew by doing this that you weren't playing by the game's rules, that you were breaking it. And so maybe the problem is that, or, you know, quote unquote problem, if it is a problem, is that they're framing it as like a completely valid way of playing the game. And maybe it is. Maybe that depends on the game. But I think maybe there's some value in offering a cheat for people, because that's something I miss from games.
I guess cheats are their own thing, right? It depends. I guess take it or leave. Like, cheats are cheats, but I think these days a lot of that is being integrated a bit more in a sinister way. Maybe it's a harsh word for that, but they're not even presented as cheat codes. They're more like, hey, do you want this mode or that mode? Hey, do you want? Oh, you don't like actual playing the game? Oh, well, you can just watch the cut. You can have the game play for you, and you just watch the cutscenes or something. It's like, well, at that point, you might as well just go on YouTube and watch the cutscenes.
Sometimes the problem with that is if you again, to use the school analogy, if you skip a class, then you might not have picked up the necessary skills to do things later. And so you might end up getting frustrated at later parts of the game because the game assumes that you know something that you skipped out on. So it's a tough thing to manage. In my experience, the games I've seen that have played with this accessibility stuff tend to be the games that are becoming less and less about the challenge these days anyway. Like, how much of these some of these games like God of War are actually about like mastering a deep combat system, and how much of them are about like sort of enjoying the cinematic experience, right? So I'm not saying that those games shouldn't have challenge, but maybe I think those feel like the appropriate games to experiment with punishment on.
Yeah, I actually think there's a lot of ways you can do this, and without, let's say, without your character dying, for example, or without a game over screen, but they still have to be there, right? Let's say take away half of your gold, or like teleport the player back into the previous area, or like something, right? And definitely a lot of games did do that exactly. I was playing Mass Effect Andromeda. In Mass Effect Andromeda, you have a game over screen if you die in combat, but if, let's say, you run off a cliff or jump off a cliff, they just teleport you to where you jumped off from. So there's compromises you can do, but if I was fighting somebody in Mass Effect Andromeda and instead of dying, they would teleport me back a bit, well then at that point I would be like asking questions like, why is that happening to me?
Yeah, I mean, if you take away everything, then players might even ask, what's the point in mastering the gameplay systems? Why, is there any reward? So you have to at least maybe reward the player in some way for doing a good job.
Yeah, exactly. It's that, right? It's the mastering part that
If there's no punishment, then why be good? But or you could just see it as you're always rewarded for performing well, and you're just not rewarded at all if you don't perform well. I suppose there's two different ways you could do it.
Yeah, and I think the mastering is really the thing that some players, some people are really having trouble with. And it's funny how Sekiro came out and literally said, you will be bashing your head over and over until you master each and every boss, until you master their moves, until you master their movement, until you know how to fight them, and then you can progress. No difficulty options, nothing. You just that, no cheat codes. And of course, FromSoft then went on to make Elden Ring, and it's just I'm really happy that FromSoft games just fly in the face of all of that and still sell huge numbers. For me, that is an indication that they're on the right track, and there is still to this day an appetite from players for that kind of content.
The FromSoft games have all kinds of ways to adjust the difficulty. I'm not saying they're perfect at it, but in Dark Souls 2, you can do different things to make the game harder. Oh man, I didn't realize that was going to happen. There's ways you can make the game harder in all kinds of different ways, challenge runs and that sort of thing. And there's all kinds of ways you can make the game easier. I mean, the Souls games practically hinge on the idea that you will read a message or you will look something up and you'll learn that there's a super overpowered strategy that you can use to cheese a fight. And they let you kind of, again, it's kind of the cheat code thing. Like, you kind of know that you're cheesing the game, but if you're cool with that, then you're cool with that. Everybody wants to play the game differently. Some people won't want to play that way. So there actually is a ton of ways that you can approach the game and set your own difficulty. It's just done a little more organically than an easy, medium, hard.
Yeah, and if we're talking about, like, I guess moving away from the game over screens and more into the difficulty, From Software is on the forefront of exploring those concepts in terms of designs. Just the ability to turn on and off multiplayer elements, invasions, already makes almost like all of those games harder or easier. You can join certain covenants. Actually, you mentioned Dark Souls 2. In that game, you can join a covenant that makes everything so much harder. They're literally, it's funny though, in those games though, there are rings and accessories that you can put on to make things harder, but there's none that would actually make it easier. The things you mentioned, like finding a quirk of a boss or like an easy strategy, is definitely there. But I almost want to say it's not even. It's kind of like expected you would find them. There really isn't like a setting or anything you can do to just unilaterally make the entire game easier for you. But you can do the opposite though, so it's funny.
Yeah, or you can summon in people online and make fights easier. I don't think they do it. They do a perfect job, but then I don't think anyone does. I think easy, medium, hard isn't a great way of picking difficulty anyway, because what is easy, what's medium, what's hard, that's different based on who you're asking. I like some games that frame it as like give me a story or give me a challenge. It's like I think a better way of phrasing things, because different games treat difficulty differently, and even then some games have adaptive difficulty where they change the experience based on how people are performing, and that's interesting.
Here
slid right past
some stealth gameplay here. I've forgotten about this completely.
This is pretty unique. Oh, cool! And I could run away from him there if I wanted to. I think it's great when, just the standard gameplay of walking around in a field and having random encounters can get old pretty fast in RPGs. So it's great when areas have gimmicks like this to, keep things interesting, keep things moving.
Yeah, actually, this reminded me about the thing. Actually, I've been thinking about this lately. Level design in the context of JRPG. Because I feel like it's often been overlooked historically and even nowadays. And it's
not what you think of when you think of like brilliant level design.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's almost like a shame, right? Because you end up fighting in a different screen, and and there's menus and stuff. But at the end of the day, you still have to traverse these environments, and there's still, I think, my opinion is that a good level design still applies even in this case.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's just that because you're not actually engaging enemies in the same space, that means that has to instruct you in terms of how you build environments, right? I guess it's it's a bit more. You would have easier time if you're making an action RPG where you fight enemies exactly where they are. Obviously, then it changes everything changes really. But in this case, for example, I think it's actually a good way. Now that I'm looking at this, a good way of creating interesting spaces with gameplay, in this case stealth, but also living alongside of random battles that kind of like happen on their own, really.
Ah! Oh no.
I wonder if you could have.
I'm in trouble now.
If you could have actually ran away from them.
I think so. Yeah, I suppose regardless of whether you engage with enemies on the same screen or not, you're still exploring space. And so all the same rules of creating an interesting space still apply.
Do you think there's some certain things that don't apply, or you have to look at them differently?
Well, because the gameplay elements, I mean, you're not fighting enemies on these screens. So in this case, you are thinking about the enemies as they move around the map. So there is a little bit of that, but you have to create something compelling with less tools at your disposal. So because you aren't going to have fights, you don't have that, but you still have players, I don't know, thinking about how to, I'm going to get locked in another fight here, aren't I? Immediately. Oh, okay, that's great. You're still thinking about treasure chests. How are you going to reward a player for exploration by offering them a treasure chest around this map? Or even just, how do players explore this map, and do they think about this place as a 3D world? Do they think about it spatially? Do things link up? Is it fun to kind of navigate around? That stuff still applies. And then a lot of games, these a lot of JRPGs are now flirting with these action elements where turn-based stuff happens in the real environment. So that can affect things as well, though you tend not to. It's not like a shooter where you're worrying as much about like things like cover or line of sight so much.
I think you might need to get into that elevator there.
Oh, I can interact with that. Okay. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right, actually, because I guess you just remove one element, and that is, taking cover, active enemies on the map, but everything else still applies. Exploration has to be interesting. You can have a lot of side paths with treasures, definitely puzzles, and actually JRPGs of that era nowadays definitely use that as well. So like, instead of challenging players with enemies on the map right there, they'll challenge you with puzzles instead in the environment. So that's also a good way of doing this. But ultimately, I brought it up because at the end of the day, I still think it's important to think about good level design for most games, and definitely for JRPGs. Even if you're making like really like a traditional one, like this style, or Final Fantasy VII, even then, making sure that the environments you explore are really interesting is still important.
Are there any games that come to mind when you think of good level design in a JRPG?
I think the one that stood out to me, it's not really that new, but it stood out to me back then, and I still remember, think about it from time to time, is Xenoblade 1, Xenoblade Chronicles. When that came out, 2011, I was expecting a JRPG with a very traditional take on a lot of things. Instead, it was also like a sandboxy open world, so it had that going for it, but I felt like it really made sure that the spaces you're exploring were interesting, and it had elevation. It had, even when you're exploring a cave, it had different side paths. It had kind of different areas you can explore, treasures in nooks and crannies. The open world spaces, they could have ended up being really empty and boring, but instead they were actually interesting to explore and just run around. You could kind of you couldn't climb every mountain, but you could explore a lot of that space that they were presenting to you. And as the game progresses, I think you played it, right?
Xenoblade, no, I haven't.
Oh,
So that's one where the fights happen in the 3D map. You don't go to a separate screen for fights,
yeah,
right?
you don't. But even if they didn't happen on the same screen, I think it still had enough of level design elements that were interesting enough, even without that. That's why I brought it up, because yeah, like you fight them right there, but it doesn't really actually affect anything else you do.
So, love it, Slambert. Slambert? Slambear? Slambert. I'm gonna go Slambert. What comes to my mind is... Oh, I had a good one. Persona 5 comes to mind when I think of level design in RPG. Have you played that game?
I played Persona 2. I still need to catch up with the rest of them.
Oh, okay. So 5 has a lot of context-sensitive interactions, like jumping across platforms and things like that. But it also has a big emphasis on sneak attacks in the dungeons. So if you've ever played the Batman Arkham games, it has actually kind of a similar thing where there's frequently you're put in a fairly large space with patrolling guards, and you have to get to a vantage point or sneak up behind them and then do like a sneak attack to get the drop on them, which will save you a turn against the opponents. So it's interesting because normally with RPGs, the space of the field doesn't really affect combat in the map a ton, but this gets you actually thinking about, even though all combat happens on a separate screen, it gets you thinking about the battles and how they can be impacted by the field that you're in, because you want to get drops on enemies as much as you can.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting way of using the space you explore.
So right now I feel like the combat is pretty basic. I don't have any spells. There's not like a ton going on in terms of gameplay options. I have some items. I just tried one of those single elemental usage items. Didn't really do, I could bash for more damage, but it didn't really do any more damage than what I'm doing with my regular swings. So I'm still just kind of timing these strikes.
So do you think this reminds me of Final Fantasy VIII, and when you were playing that, do you think this is maybe like a solution to like the issue you had with that game, where from the beginning it was bombarding you with all of these systems, summons, the equipment, the everything else, and you were kind of getting overwhelmed, and all you did was just haven't even explored the first dungeon, and you already had to deal with all those systems. Well, this game, on the other hand, is like the opposite of that. It's like all you have is like an attack.
It's a little too simplistic.
So
I also noticed there hasn't been any chances to heal yet. So thank goodness I bought a... No, I guess I didn't buy any potions. I did buy some potions when I got in here, but in the forest, I was running low on potions, and I wish that I'd bought some from the merchant, because potions are the only way that you can get your health back right now.
So do you think this game strikes the better balance, or do you think it went a bit far to the other side of that?
It's too simplistic. I mean, it's. I'm not going to say that the battle system is simplistic, across the whole game. I don't know yet. We haven't gotten it to any of the Dragoon stuff, but right now there isn't a ton that's carrying me forward mechanically.
Yeah, I'm not. I think I might be wrong, but I don't actually think you'll get to any Dragoon stuff in the 1 hour. It comes a bit later. Definitely for Dart here. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Rose will kind of whip out her dragoon form. But yeah, it's an interesting contrast to Final Fantasy VIII, and it gets, of course, it gets more advanced as the game goes on.
Well, in 6 and 7, you start with magic options, so they get you thinking about that. 9 gives you... Who do you have at the beginning of 9 party wise? I think pretty early on you get a few different party members coming in and out that have some gimmicks. Like within the first hour, you get a chance to, I think you get to play as Steiner or Vivi. So you get a chance to sort of sample what the game has to offer in terms of options.
Yeah, but even then, I think you start pretty basic. I think in that game you can do attacks and magic, and I guess you can limit break, but they don't really. It takes a while as well, I think, in that game.
Yeah. Yeah, if each of these characters had like a spell of a certain element type, and maybe some of the enemies were weak or resistant to some of those, that would be enough to get me thinking. You know, Xenogears is the combo system. I'm thinking of stuff from this era. I do like this this gimmick of these guards that can see you. That's adding a lot of interesting stuff to the map. I just wish the fights themselves had more going on. Oh, they've looped this area.
Yeah, it definitely keeps you on your toes in these areas. Like you.
Oh,
But
I keep trying to go down these hallways. I think I need to wait.
that guy's freaking out. Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Like I wouldn't even think that this environment has, you know, like when you look at these spaces you explore, they kind of like Final Fantasy VII, like painted almost like a static image, but actually they're not. Or at least that room wasn't. So is there like different different rooms that look the same here, or?
I think it's just two rooms
All right.
that maybe they are different.
Yes!
Oh. Laffit Slambert. Someone said, let's throw together some vaguely Germanic sounding compounds.
Yes! Yes!
So far, Lavitz is a lot stronger than Dart, I'm finding.
Yeah, I think he's one of your permanent party members. I forgot that you meet him so early.
See if we can find a way out of here. I think I need to look for the elevator. Did I see that in the next room? There is that. However, there's also this. Okay. Oh. Well, they forced me into that one.
So are you going up?
I think so.
Yeah, I think what's probably gonna happen is we're gonna get to some sort of logical conclusion to this area, maybe some sort of mini boss, and then conclude there.
We're doing okay for time then?
Well, we have about 15 minutes left, so I think, you know, this will end up being one of the games that, you know, you won't see that much in 1 hour. But I think the biggest thing you probably won't see is the Dragoon transformations, which ends up being simply you have an SP points meter or whatever. Once it fills up, you can transform into Dragoon. At that point, you have extra like special attack and like extra like special magic for each character that does it. And then as long as you have the SP, you can stay in Dragoon form and then they turn back. It was a
Right past him.
it was a visually interesting system, impressive, and kind of akin to summons in Final Fantasy VII. But
So it gets you thinking tactically about combat.
yes, it's definitely like that power up thing. You also get like stat boosts as well. So you definitely like, oh, I'm having trouble with this boss or whatever. Then you transform into a dragoon. You wouldn't really do that with random enemies.
Okay.
Right, Shanna, the girl in the intro cutscene.
Oops. And how long is to play through this game roughly?
Oh, it's a long one, I guess. It's, you know, Final Fantasy VII again, about the same, I would say.
So what, 40, 60 hours?
Something like that. Like if you want to do everything, you'll end up having like a 99.9999 hour save file.
Yes!
Can I run from these fights? I haven't seen that as an option.
You should be able to. Have you tried pressing, the classic of
Yeah.
R1,
Let's
R2,
see.
or L1?
Oh, interesting. You can press R2 to cycle camera angles.
Huh.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Running is not an option.
No, but if... Oh,
And I don't
right.
think it has been in any of my fights.
Yeah. It's interesting that there's another small thing that this game had that was kind of almost like a forward-thinking way. Like they didn't really need to add this changing camera angles. But there you go, have it.
It'd be awesome if you could do it at any time instead of only during your turn. Let's see, I've tried the fire. Let's try the lightning. What was it? Lightning I tried last time. No, okay, this is doing better. Oh, that's cool. I got way more damage out of that one. Like every button press raised the percentage higher, which is fun.
Yeah. I always appreciate a good vocalization of attacks, and this game definitely has them. And by good, I mean not good, but funny.
So they go back.
I mean, hey lady, there's like guys coming after you. Why are you spending time like flirting?
Hurry up, the guards are coming back.
Yeah, a lot of the characters, like I like them, but at the same time they are pretty traditional, you could say. You know, you have your like clueless dart main protag. You have a very clear, obvious love interest in Shana. You have your burly sidekick, Lavitz there. A few others join, and they all kind of fall into one stereotype or the other, you know, archetype. So again, like if you're somebody who is okay with that, then that's fine. If not, then this game might kind of be grading.
So she's not in the fight.
She's not in the fight yet, but she will be at some point. She'll have her Dragoon as well.
Okay.
I don't even remember how they get the Dragoons. Like, the story goes places in this game, for sure. And that's why it's, for me, it was so interesting back then, especially. Like, you start, well, you know, the usual JRPG common trope of you start in your small village and then you end up killing the god, right?
Mm-hmm.
Killing the gods.
Yeah.
So, and along the way you do other amazing things. So the game definitely has a lot of that, and I think it did that better than most back in the day, for sure.
So would you say it's a story that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I think it's the strongest part of the whole package, actually. I don't know if I actually mentioned that. Like, I think as much as I like transforming into Dragoons, and as much as I think they did some interesting things in combat with, you know, timing attacks, I think at the end of the day, what stood out to me over the years and what remained with me was actually the story and the characters. So, yeah,
Interesting.
that's the main draw for me in this game.
I mean, so far it hasn't hooked me, but that's interesting that it, you know, something I could potentially look forward to if I kept playing.
There was a bit of that at the very beginning when that guy was kidnapping this woman. He was like checking her forehead with like this ball he had. Like, all of that is, again, it would be expanded later on, but
Yeah, I do appreciate that kind of mystery that they set up. You've got to give the player some. Every good game gives the player some questions that, you know, you want them answered. Play the game and find out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at this point, the only character who's in the know is Rose, who appeared back then, and all of these three are just like clueless. So obviously, from there, you as a player is also clueless.
There's a treasure chest on the screen. It's so tempting. And there's an elevator. It's like, I want to be there. I want to use them.
Where's the chest?
In the corner,
Oh yeah,
behind the text box.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, they didn't give me any? That felt a little unfair.
Wait, could you not move?
Well, no, they just, they took me right into the screen with a guard already ready to lock on to me. At least I've got her in the fight now.
Yeah, see if she has magic or any kind of healing. Okay,
No.
I guess not.
I'm surprised it's not an option.
I think I'm starting to remember the magic won't.
Oh, she doesn't have the timing either.
Yeah, the magic won't come in until you have those dragon powers. That's
Oh, wow.
when they get to use magic even outside of those forms. But then they have those like balls, the dragon balls. I think they're actually dragon balls. Once they have those, they can actually use magic anytime as well. I like the almost comical sound effects of that guy like sprinting towards you and smacking you with his. Well, let's see if you can actually like encounter some sort of mini boss fight here, or if this continues on quite a bit, then we'll just have to leave it there. But I think you should be able to get to some sort of end of this dungeon area.
Ah, this music's so good. I just want to hang out in this menu and vibe, you know? That's the best kind of game
This
music.
reminds me of like some sort of
You just wanna
yeah,
chill.
like some sort of detective game where he's chilling in the bar music.
It's, yeah, vaguely jazzy and mysterious. Very, very PS1. Oh no. Oh, whew. So I was getting money. I haven't found any equipment yet, even though there is an equipment system, I think.
Yeah,
It's weird that by now they haven't found a single piece of item, and that the shopkeepers don't sell them either.
I think this whole sequence here is kind of treated as intro slash, well, not tutorial because they're not actually teaching you anything, but like more of like an intro with limited things you can do, I guess. Because I think you also have the whole map, world map, and your ship at some point.
Yeah, of course you gotta get a ship, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, no. One of these had the... I feel like there's more than two screens going on here.
Yeah, they kind of made this like a maze. I feel like that is really a good instance of maybe not a very successful level design element. Like,
Yeah, you... listeners, you want one solid level design tip from us. Mazes are almost never fun.
I mean, if you have like some sort of very clear maze area that you are challenging players, go ahead. But it's like a cell block area, right? Where
Oh, this area still can't do this. Yeah, it's just almost never fun to make players. Like, I don't want to say you should never make players lost, but maybe not in the maze kind of way, you know?
I guess you're escaping this area, so it makes sense for you to go back.
Yeah. I think this is where I came in. It's our friend Merchant. I should probably buy some more potions. I feel like potions are the one thing I can never have enough of. Oh, you also have an item limit in this game.
Oh yeah.
I can only carry 32 items. Interesting. Haha. Waltzed right past him.
Ah, there you go.
Here we are. Frugal.
This is not, by the way, the guy from the intro cutscene. That guy is pretty
No,
important.
no.
He'll deal with him way later. This is just a big goon.
I like how he animates.
Well, good thing you bought those potions.
Yeah. I'm hoping he's weak to some element. You know, fire or lightning. Oh, I can't... Okay. So she has a ranged weapon, but I'm not allowed to hit him because he's, like, in the back row or something. But you'd think a ranged character, the one advantage that she would have is she could hit him.
Wait, are you sure you can't actually somehow...
I'm pressing up and down on the
Yeah.
D-pad, left and right, and L and R. No, you can't do it.
What if you switch the perspective? What was that button?
R2.
Yeah, does that?
No,
Okay.
it's the same.
Yeah.
I guess no. You know what? I want to try the element stuff on him, not these little guys.
I mean, in general, I like when some like having kind of this different line of people in the front and then people in the back, and you have to defeat people in the front. I think for like as a concept, I like that because it adds that strategic element to the fights. But of course, in this case, you have so little. You have basic attacks, and you can't actually reach him.
Yeah. Or like if my magic items could hit him, but they can't.
Oh, have you tried them?
Well, actually, no, I didn't. Let's see. Oh, you can. Okay. Think. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's a multi-hit. Let's try it. I'm gonna mash this X button. Oh yeah, 192.
Nice. I mean, imagine if you had like a turbo connected.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's what they wanted you to do in this fight, because he will always keep summoning guys, or can you actually clear them out?
But I feel like he won't actually detonates and attacks all. There we go. Let's try that. Dissolves? Oh, okay, yeah, that's status ailments. Funny, I never found anyone with status ailments, or that could inflict them. Whoops, oh, I wasn't looking.
Failed.
I wasn't looking.
Did that do any damage to him?
It did 4. Let's try it again. Jeez, I mean, all that mashing, and I'm only doing 2 extra damage.
Well, maybe at these lower levels that's important.
Well, I feel like at higher levels it's more important, because there could be like more of a, like the percentage. I guess it's a percentage. A percentage is a percentage.
And yeah, and it will be important, yeah, because it is percentage.
Keeps them relevant, I suppose. I can just hit him now. I think that's the difference. Like, they just... I couldn't... Seemed like I couldn't hit him with that first row of guys, but now I can.
Maybe... Were you not pressing the right... I don't know, it's weird.
I mean, now it looks like he should be the back row, and only Shanna should be able to hit him. That would be a great mechanic, because then it'd make her feel really unique and valuable in the group. But it... Like, the other guys can also just hit him right now, so
I
it's
feel
weird.
like maybe that would make her a bit too important then in your group composition.
Well, just because she's new to the party, so it makes sense that you give her a fight that she's really good at right away.
Oh god.
I'm doing all right. The thing is these guys feel like they don't feel very threatening. Like only one of my Lavitz is taking any damage, and he can just heal it all back right now with one
Well,
potion.
that's because you have them. Imagine if you
So-
didn't have any potions though.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't feel like a challenge. It feels more like, I don't know. An easy way you can make fights feel challenging without being challenging is you just make them take like a long time. So it's like, wow, this is a tough opponent, but it's not really meaningful. I kind of wish he was. I wish it was a shorter fight with a tougher foe. You know.
Yeah. This guy looks like he reminds me of trolls from World of Warcraft.
Whoops! Oh, I healed the wrong guy.
Sorry, not trolls, ogres. There you go. That's the challenge of, maybe accidentally you'll heal the wrong person.
Touch!
It's a funny animation. I feel like Dart doesn't do a lot of damage right now. Let him be the healer.
Quite often back in the day and these days as well, they don't show you the HP of the enemies, and especially bosses. What do you think the thinking behind that is? To keep players always engaged, or like keep the tension up, or maybe they didn't even think about that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would think when you know the number, wow, there's a lot of damage. I would think when you know the number that the players could start strategizing a little better.
Well, yeah, because that's what I'm thinking. It's like, for me, it makes a bit more sense to show that.
But by the time this game came out, Pokemon already had the ability to look at your opponent's health and strategize around that. So I'm kind of surprised that it took so long for these games to introduce that.
Actually, I think maybe the actual answer is that there are spells that you have to use to scan your enemies. I'm not sure if this game had that, but certainly a lot of other enemies in back then used that, so they would tie that to that mechanic. Because otherwise, if you can just look at the enemy and know everything about them and HP, then I guess those scans are kind of pointless.
Yes!
Touch!
That's a real nasty move. Imagine if he wiped you out with that. Oh, finally an item.
Nice.
We all leveled up.
Cool. He needs to rest.
Is he immortal?
That's a weird looking horse.
Yeah. Very wide looking horse. This guy.
It's the man in hood. Well,
There we go. Back to the map.
I guess a good time to conclude here. Legend of Dragoon left a big impression on me. The story is, for me, the best part. Like, to a point where I would say, even if I would forgive maybe somebody who would put maybe some sort of cheat code to limit the encounter rate, or make it easy just to see the story in this case.
I thought it was, I mean, from what I've played so far, I think it's competent. I can kind of see why I put it down as a kid. I think it's maybe lacking some of the polish of like a high-end JRPG. And it doesn't, like, so far I haven't quite gotten to the point where I've seen something that really sticks out. Like, it just seems like a fairly competently made RPG.
Yeah, I mean, it does have those certain specific things they added to make things easier, or maybe certain things they gonna maybe spend a bit more time thinking about. But yeah, overall, it's
not bad.
It has the Dragoon stuff that you didn't get to, and that kind of is a highlight for sure. Once you get that, it's pretty much the same from there, and that carries the game to the end.
Yeah, I'm sure if I play a little more, I'd get more into the story and the world, the mechanics, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely does some certain character development elements, and they don't. Dar is kind of, your generic guy, but certain other characters have quite an interesting motivations and things that happen to them. Not everyone survives, right? Let me tell you this. They take story takes certain turns. Cool.
So, all that said, what are we playing next
Right.
time?
So Ian, I keep forgetting about this, and I'm not going to make the same mistake again before it's too late. So next time, I'm going to have you play Anthem.
Oh,
BioWare's
interesting.
Anthem. I'm not confident that the servers of that game will remain active for much longer. And as far as I know, you wouldn't even be able to play the single player part of that without being able to log in. So we'll do that next before it's too late. Yeah.
Okay.
And what about what am I playing then?
I'm going to have you play Eternal Darkness on the GameCube.
Eternal Darkness. Is that part of a series?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's a survival horror game.
Yes, I've heard of that one. People say it's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see, won't we?
I guess we will. All right. Well, with that, thanks for watching and listening, everyone, and see you next time.
Till next time.
My
can see the sky above.